Yes, it is live. Hey y'all. Hello everyone. What's up, my Brown Mamas community and family? I hope you are doing well and that this message finds you in the best of health and spirit and all of those great things. So, what's up, y'all? It's March 15th and we still in here. It's cold outside. The weather been doing something real funky and you know, I'm just excited to be here and I hope that you all are doing well. And I have a special guest with me today, and we're going to be having a conversation around debt and doubt and self care and wellness and wealth and all of those things. And so I'm just excited to bring Mrs. Valerie Mosley to have this conversation. What's up, Val?
Hi there, Muffy. How are you?
I'm doing good. I cannot complain. So I'm gonna tell y'all a little story about how I found out about Bright Up. I was actually at a professional women's network event and struck up a conversation about my own self worth and value with one of the women who is working at Bright Up. And she was like, "Well, I would love to introduce you to our CEO so we can deepen some of these conversations because I know you do moms and we do wealth and wellness. And clearly, there is a connection there. And there was absolutely a connection. And so I came to know Val and get to know her and her story. And so, Val, can you just tell our mamas a little bit about who you are and why are you invested in this wealth and worth and self worth work?
Thank you so much, Muffy. Thank you for sharing your own story. And hello, all Black mamas out there, brown mamas, excuse me, brown mamas out there. So I am invested in this work because of a personal story. Like you, perhaps, I'm the daughter of Rose Mosley, who was a maid for others and who had 9 children and made 25 cents for an hour for 10 years and raised her kids. She was spiritual. She had a base. That was my father's mother. And my own mother, her mother, was also a maid and would come home on weekends to care for her only daughter. And through our history, oftentimes, if we have done well, there are people in our family who may not have done as well. I don't know exactly why, but often that happens. And so I'm personally invested in this because of a personal story. It wasn't until my mother was much older that I learned that she was repeatedly abused sexually, raped by family members, and and I had my own story where I had a challenge when I was very young by my mother's stepfather, and I didn't tell her until I was 34 with my last child. I kept it in, and I had a lot of shame about it. So I know what happens generationally when things that happen outside of your control, it affects your value. It affects how you see yourself. It affects what you feel. And it's only been recently that I've been able to talk about it and not get emotional. And what I know is that if you don't value yourself, it shows up in so many different ways. And while at Wellington, I'm managing billions of dollars. I went to I ended up in finance, and I've been managing and been in around money since I was really young. And in that, when I finished college, I wound up going to a bank and went through a credit training program. Then I went to grad school and majored in finance. And then I ended up managing billions of dollars. And I supported my brother, and he supported me. He was my oldest, my rock. And once he called me while I'm leading the firm's industry strategy group, and I've been talking about trends in different areas, that he's like, Val, can you help? And I say, sure, because I'm always there for him. He's always there for me. And then I said, I'll just wire you some money instead of going through Western Union. He's like, Val, I don't have a bank. I'm like, what?
Mm,
You don't have a bank? I've been talking about the unbanked, not knowing that it was in my own family.
right.
And then I found out, Muffy, that I said, come on, Jamie, let's get you banked. And he was charged fees that they waived for me, which is not okay, because his worth and your worth shouldn't, your wealth and what you already have shouldn't determine your worth or worthiness to learn how to become more financially healthy. I should have been charged the fees because I wasn't as conscientious as my brother, and he should have been waived. So I'm on a mission, and my sister was overcharged interest rates repeatedly. My brother went to college, but he didn't finish because of clashes with my dad. And my sister went to college, finished, became a nurse. I'm the youngest of four. And she was charged ridiculous rates for auto loans.
Mm.
She knew the cash flow, but she didn't appreciate the APR, the rate that you're charged. And when I got on the phone and said, "What are you doing?" They they lowered the rates 400 basis points. I said, "My sister
Wow.
doesn't have her credit score isn't that bad. 400 basis points in within 24 hours, just because I said triple C rated companies have better rates than that." And then within 6 months, she wanted to take it because she wanted the car. Tried, and within 6 months, she said, "Val, you're going to be proud of me," and I am. She refinanced it down to 3%. So people will take advantage of you over and over and over again. And what I believe is that when you come to know your worth and then you're more informed, you will grow your wealth. So I'm dedicated and committed for the afternoon of my life. I didn't tell you this little fact. My brother, he passed away a few years ago, and I'm just
Mm.
carrying his
I'm
spirit with
sorry
me.
about that.
Thank you. I'm carrying his spirit with me because I believe that to whom much is given, much is required. So
Absolutely.
I'm on a mission to make sure you know and everyone knows.
Valerie, so I just want to, because there was something you said at the very end that I think kind of embodies everything that you said to sum it up. You said people will take advantage of you over and over and over again if you don't know. If you
Exactly.
don't know, if you're not empowered to make better decisions, if you're not empowered in terms of your place, if you're not empowered in terms of your ability to ask the right questions, take up space in the spaces you're supposed to take up space in, people will take advantage of you. First things first is just thank you for your transparency because you shared a lot with us that you didn't have to share. And I'm sure there are lots of moms out there who have been through similar stories of abuse, similar stories of not knowing that our own family members are going through issues. One of the things that is happening right now with so many Black women graduating from college, with so many Black women starting businesses, is that we're leaving income brackets, but the people around us are still being affected by high interest rates, being unbanked, not having the knowledge to make good investment, make good investments with their money. So we see that a lot. And that's why I love this concept of disrupting debt and doubt that Bright Up is trying to push with us, because it's not just about getting out of debt. It's also about removing the doubt from ourselves that we can be empowered to make good decisions around our money, and removing the doubt from the people around us. Like when we stand up and start making better decisions, it is a catalyst for the other people in our lives to start making better financial decisions. Because I don't know if you've experienced this, Valerie, but once you move into another income bracket as a Black woman, it could be lonely up there.
You think?
Right. And who
Yeah,
wants to be by themselves?
exactly. That's why you
Right.
want to bring other people along. This is true. And that's a really good point that you make, Muffy, because I grew up in inner city Philly, and it was a gang infested area. There was also a lot of community, Broad and Olney, just north of North Philly, if anybody knows the area. And my sister lived. We can open the door and see Girls High, which was this academic public school, and they told her and my parents that she wasn't in the district, which is ridiculous.
Wow.
Just crazy racism. I'm 9 years younger than her, and by the time she went off to college, I was able to go and wind up going there. You just said something. What's the last thing you just said? Is um,
I said,
oh yeah. So I was in this area, and my father, he was in the service. So my mom didn't finish high school. My dad went to college and didn't finish college, but he taught at ROTC and Tuskegee Institute, which I was born in Tuskegee.
wow.
And when he came out of the service, he started working in security, and they gave him some stock options. He didn't know what stock options were at the time, but they went up in value, which gave him some flexibility. So when I'm
Mhm.
12, he moved his family away from this spot into a different part of Philly. And I was not having it. I wasn't happy about it. I was 12. I couldn't yell out my window. I
Mhm.
couldn't play double dutch right next. And but I saw what happened when you change your setting, and you suddenly you're exposed to things that we
Right.
weren't exposed to in my old neighborhood. And the people where I moved to sometimes would look down on folks from where I came from. So I really hate when people judge you for what you have. And so, to your point, the way that we're introduced to money affects how we feel about ourselves and what we're willing to just even own. So it got to the point that when I started doing better, I was reluctant to let other people know because I didn't want the judgment.
Right.
So not only is it lonely, and this is my father moving, it's not me, but what happens to you when you're young, you carry through you carry with you. And
And
this I
you
know.
have that, and it's crazy because as a Black person, everybody is rooting for you until you become successful. And then this all these things start to come in your head that we were taught when we were kids, like money is the root of all evil. What do
Yeah.
they say?
It's the
One
love of money that's
Right, it's the love of money that's the
it's
root
not
of
the
all
money.
evil, right? So these things start to play in your head like, well, am I now a good person because I have money? Um, am I smart enough to be in the places where I, am now? You start experiencing all of this doubt just about your money. So, Val, I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about how Bright Up is changing the narrative with their new app, with this new way of thinking about money.
Thank you so much for the question. So, we at Bright Up, our mission is to democratize wealth building. And we start with reinforcing what you ideally know, and that is that you're worthy. Like we
Right.
see you, we meet you where you are. Um, I told you I don't like when people look down on someone because you don't have quote unquote enough. It's not your fault. You are just as worthy. Yet, the wealth management industry will not pay attention to you if you don't already have a lot of wealth because they get paid a percentage of the assets that you manage, that they manage. So if you don't have assets, it's as if liquid assets, not the house, not the car, liquid assets that they get paid off of. It's as if you aren't invited into the club. You don't get my attention. You don't get the information. And since you weren't taught it at school, and if you're like most brown mamas, you didn't get a whole lot of that at home, where are you going to learn it? So we at Bright Up meet you where you are, create a safe space for you to ask the questions that you want, for you to identify what's important to you, so that we can serve you in a way that you have not been served, overlooked, and underappreciated. So how do we do that? We have access to capital, and we have an underwriting algorithm that is more likely to say yes to you than to someone else. It's not FICO reliant solely. And we've tested three. There's been $3.5 billion was tested with this, and there's a 2x lift, i.e., yes more often than no for the banks with millennials, and a 3x for Black and Brown communities. So if it that's huge, right? That's just huge. So you get
That is
access to
huge. That
right. I'm
I don't
excited
think
about
y'all realize how huge that is. It's basically removing barriers that you would normally face if you just walk into a bank today. You're not going to be facing them with Bright Up. Tell us more, Val.
that. Okay, so the FICO scores typically focus on 8 to 15 variables. When somebody asks a little bit about you, they can pull a soft pull on your credit and see a lot of information. We consider over 100 different factors in figuring out whether or not you are a good steward of money. And that you had one transgression doesn't mean you're a bad credit. It means that something has come up in many cases. So we consider over 100 instead of the 8 to 15, and more likely to say yes than no. That's one. We want to pair, and that access to that credit is important to refinance expensive debt, credit card debt. We have an ability to do the same thing. We're working on our auto refinancing as well, because those are two of the areas where we find ourselves over indebted and often underinvested. So we want to start with what gets in the way. And then we pair that access to capital with some content and some coaching. And importantly, we what do we do differently? We want to hear from you. What matters? What is it that you need? Which some people need to reduce debt. Other people would like to just talk with someone. Others would say, I don't understand this concept, but I'd like to learn. And so we come with you because we want to support you. In many cases, you know what it's like when you don't know, there's sometimes shame. Like my brother had he one weekend he he spent $20 and he thought that there was enough money in his account. He was a substitute teacher, taught people how to um, taught tennis. He was great at tennis, and he got a $35 overdraft charge. And he's like, "What? Why?" Well, at many banks, if your income goes below a certain amount, they start charging you each month. So he thought he had more there than he did because he wasn't aware of the deductions. And he was devastated. And he didn't tell me all weekend. And I'm like, Jamie. So many times we suffer in silence. And at Bright Up, we don't want you to suffer in silence.
Right.
We're going to give you some information, but most importantly, ask us what you want. We're going to get you some answers and some support.
Right. And on the app, one of the things that I love that it initially does, just off the bat, once you sign into the Bright Up app, so once you go to the Apple store or your Android store and you download the Bright Up app, the first thing you're immediately going to get access to is some insights about your own money. Once you log in, you're going to be prompted to sign into your bank account, and then it's going to give you some insights. It's going to tell you this is where you're spending money at, this is where you're not spending money at. And so, off the bat, that's value because most of us, let's just keep it 100. And we've talked about this last year. I did a live about the way trauma affects our money. Some of us don't want to look at our money. We are scared. I know I still get anxiety every time I have to log into the bank account. And
Like,
it doesn't matter how much money is in there. I'm scared. So I love the Bright Up app because it off the bat, it just gives you those insights so that you can be educated without doing the scary thing, which is logging directly in and looking at how much money is in there. It's just telling you, hey, you're spending this much money on food, you're spending this much money on transportation, you're spending this much money here. And then in addition to that, it gives us customized information. So, like Val said, as Black women, we know that we are experiencing oftentimes shame and guilt when it comes to our money because we're ashamed that we don't know because everything around us is so money focused. I mean, it's hard to not just waking up in the morning is hard to not spend money. And when you live in a society that is so materially focused and monetized, it is difficult to not experience shame when you don't know. You're afraid to say you don't know. So it's providing customized information. And on top of that, it's providing a safe space for you to be able to find access to capital. So I don't think it gets too much better than that.
oh, that's nice.
A
Thank you.
safe, customized space for us to get access to capital, access to our own information, and access to information about how we can build wealth. And if you're not in the place where you even feel comfortable having conversations about building wealth, maybe you're in a place where you just feel comfortable about deciding to get a budget or about deciding that you want to look at the interest rates on your credit card. Because the first step is really just looking to see what's going on.
That's right. And Muffy, you said something that really resonates with me when you think of we talked a little bit about what happens when you're young. Was your introduction to money joyful or was
Oh
it
no.
painful?
It mine was absolutely painful.
Right. So if it's painful, know that subconsciously you're likely to, without any prompting, have a negative reaction
Right.
to it just because of what you experience. And that's like this invisible hand and this invisible head. It'll tell you stories about yourself. You aren't worth it if you've had trauma. You aren't deserving. You you and becoming aware. So what you talked about, you go to the app, you see, become aware of how you're spending, become aware of what you're thinking about yourself, about money, become aware of what comes up for you when you start to imagine issues around money. Do you get a little anxious? Do you have anxiety? Do you tell yourself, I should know more? No, you shouldn't. You weren't taught it. If you were struggling, there is no surprise because if you or someone you love is struggling financially, it's not your fault necessarily. It's not
Right.
always your fault.
Right.
And you've got to know that. On the other hand, and in addition to, there are things that you can do to become more financially healthy. But it's not your fault. If you look at long-term graphs, you'll see that people in the top 1% and 0.1% have done much better in terms of the income growth. There's a huge gap. And when Martin Luther King was talking about differences in wealth, the differences in white and black wealth was like this.
And
Now
still
it's
persisting. Like,
it's so no, it's much worse. It's much
wow.
worse, despite the education, despite the addition in income, the wealth differential is much greater. And part of it is because we don't know, or we may not believe that we're deserving, or we have some money and don't know where to go. So we at Bright Up, we want to start with the debt, and that is, let's reduce the cost of it. And then we want to show you ways to increase your assets.
The
And
app's name is Bright Up. I'm sorry, somebody just said it's called Bright Up. So you can, if you look on the bottom of the screen, you can go to that link, or you can just go directly to the app store and look up Bright Up.
it's called
Get Bright.
getbrightup.com. Getbrightup.com.
Mhm.
And
Wow, you said something. I want to backtrack a little bit because you said something, and I really want people to understand what you're talking about when you say the cost of debt. Because I think people think about debt and they don't think about the cost of debt. Can you explain that a little more?
sure, I will. There's a concept that's referred to as APR. It's the annualized percentage rate that you were charged in order to borrow the debt. So if you have a house, you know that there's a mortgage rate, and what you pay is a function of what that mortgage rate is. And if you have credit cards, there's an interest rate associated with how much they're going to charge you. And in many cases, it's over 20%. Think about that for a second. It's over 20% annualized percentage cost rate that they will charge you for the opportunity to buy something.
Right.
Now, all debt isn't bad. If you're borrowing debt to go to college and you know that after college you're going to make more money, then that's a good trade. But if you're borrowing debt to buy those shoes that you think and that dress, that's going to go down in value. So you're spending 20% to buy something that goes down in value. That's financial quicksand. Now
Right.
think about it for a second. In contrast, if you invested in the stock market, on average, over the long run, it changes each year, but on the long run, you're going to make 10% interest rate in return, annual percentage rate. So if the typical increase in what you will earn if you own the asset is 10%, and often nowadays it's over 20% or 17% or 19%, you're upside down to buy things that are going to go down in value. So most people don't pay attention to that, and that's important. If you have it, for example, and sometimes it's unconscionable. If you have an emergency and you know anyone that's going to payday loans, do you know what the rate is that they charge?
Right. Ridiculous. That's what it is.
It is ridiculous. It's unconscionable. It should be illegal.
It
And in
should
some
be.
places, in some states, they do a cap, and the cap
Mhm.
is 60%, or there's a cap at 40%. But in the United States, the average APR, if you can get an emergency loan, is 391%. Think about that, Brown Mamas. Oh, I get chills when I think about it.
Me too. I just got chills.
I
Like,
just
I
got
just can't
chills.
believe they're allowed to do that.
391%. This is at a time a few years ago when interest rates were zero.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's almost 400%. And one of the investors in Bright Up said, Val, wow, I get access to credit at 78 basis points. That's almost 1% versus almost 4%.
Right.
What about that is fair?
Valerie, can you explain that? Basis points.
Oh, forgive me. That's 0.78% of 1%. So instead of 1%, it's less than 1%. It's 0.7. And that's, you call that 1% is referred to as 100 basis points.
Right.
So 78 basis points is 0.78%. In
Mm.
other words, nothing. So
Right.
he's getting nothing.
Right.
And in the means, and that 78 is in contrast to, oh my gosh, almost 400%. And we started off in Columbia, South Carolina. And if you go there and you say, I need $100, it'll come back. Big red letters. The cost is 400%.
Right.
But we do it anyway because you think that there aren't any other options.
Yes.
There are other options. That's the
That
point.
part, Valerie.
We don't know any better. We don't know. And you deserve to know. So I'm on a mission and I'm going to teach. Oh, and my grandmother who, Rose, I told you about, she
Mhm.
was my heart. She shared so much unconditional love with me. I lived with her after I finished college, and she used to tell me, Valerie, you're so blessed. You make sure you share with the world what you know. And then she'd
Mhm.
say, especially with the girls. Now, this is a Black woman who was born in 1911. She died in 2011, 1 month before she turned 100. And I lived with her for a while. So I am channeling her today, Rose, for you, because I'm going to share whatever it is that I know. And how do you get to know? There are opportunities to get courses. I'm going
Mhm.
to be teaching courses where no limit to the question, safe space. Um, we have some information on the app as well, whereas you put in what you're interested in, we're going to feed you information based on your interests. We're
That's
trying to personalize using technology financial wellness.
and that's what we need.
Yeah, and I want to tell you this. This is important. We are imperfect beings, right, Muffy? We
Right.
make mistakes, but Black women, we feel like we have to please everyone else, and we feel like sometimes we're hard on ourselves. And I just want us to have grace and love and value who we are as we are. Like we aren't what our mother or father did. We aren't
Right.
what that loved one did to us. We aren't what happened to us outside of our control. Instead, we are what we come to believe and what we come to know about our value and our love, and then what we choose.
Mm.
What do we choose each day? Do we choose and have the courage to choose what's good about us? Say no to the person that takes advantage of you. Say no to that high interest rate. And there are parallels between managing money, ladies, and managing our wealth and our money.
Mm.
There's such a big difference managing our wealth and our worth. And it starts with how much you want to love yourself and how much you're going to choose to value yourself. I'm
I'm
just,
gonna use that tomorrow when I do my morning mantras. You said, and you choose. It's just that. So everything that precedes the choice is it matters, but it doesn't. Because and you choose. You
thank
get to
you.
choose. You get to decide to know, to not know, to be in control, to not be in control. There's a I don't know if you are familiar. I've been getting really close with um the beautiful chorus. And one of the things they have a mantra that says, I rule over the body that's mine.
Fine.
I
Exactly.
rule over the body that is mine.
But you won't do that if you believe that you aren't worthy, right?
Right,
If you aren't worthy, you will, you know what it's like. Sometimes there's stress and you'll eat, or you'll, I'm sure that if we're honest with ourselves, there are points in our lives that we did things that we aren't proud of.
right.
And so, mamas, I'd say to you, you know how you love your children. You're going to do what's right by your children. Make sure we're doing what's right by us, right?
Somebody
First.
asked Val, what is the cost associated with this program or with Bright Up?
That's the beautiful thing. Like a
Mhm.
lot of it is free. So like when you go into the store, it's free to come into the store. A lot of the information, it's free.
Right,
If you and often if there's some things that you want, like that take a lot of time to get into, so the ability to disrupt your debt, that's free.
right, right.
Um the courses that we're putting together, that will probably cost something. Uh
I'm
and I
signing up and there's so much to know. It's overwhelming.
It
It
is
can
so
be
overwhelming. Thank you for saying that. Thank you
mhm,
for sharing that, because that's the point that I want to say. It's understandable that it's overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. It really doesn't have to be. It starts with you writing down what it is that you want and visualizing what you want differently and sharing that with someone else. So if you write down what you really want, it increases the likelihood over 40%. If
Absolutely.
after you write it down, you share it with a partner, a bright up buddy, it's called Find Bright Up Buddy and Brown Mama buddies, to say, this is what I want to accomplish with my financial comprehensive wealth, my debt and my doubt. If you make that pairing with someone else, it goes up over 70% psychologically.
Absolutely. So
So that's
I want to make sure that we're clear. You can get on the Bright Up app today for free. You can get insights about your debt for free if you just get into the Bright Up app. It's that simple. There is no cost barrier. So I want you to know that. And it's okay if you are overwhelmed.
it
That
really is.
that is why this is a Black female owned organization.
Exactly. It is okay that it's overwhelmed. And how many times are we overwhelmed? And in response, what do? We isolate
Right.
and we
That part.
suffer in silence. And there's no need to suffer in silence. You aren't alone. You aren't
Absolutely.
alone. I'm going to tell a story that I don't think I've ever told publicly. This is where ignorance comes from. I've never told this story. I got married and I wanted to. So, someone I used to babysit for, I had a lot of respect for, and he said, "Now's the time you want to start thinking about your retirement. It's true. You're young. Start thinking about your retirement." I didn't know what a 401k was. I found, and I heard that real estate was important. So I had a little extra money, and I wound up buying this land in upstate New York, thinking that one day we were going to retire there. It was the most ridiculous thing you could do. First of all, if you're going to buy real estate. Now, and at the time, I had an apartment. So I'm living in an apartment, don't own the home, and I bought land in upstate New
Right.
York.
Right.
Like, what? And so where I was working, I shared this information with the guy next to me, and he's like, "Val, why would you do that? Why not buy property that's going to produce income?" So,
Right.
right? So you can buy, there are all these programs. This is what we will share with you over time. There are programs where for 3% down or less, if it's your first time home, you can own a home. Then if you own a home, you can rent out a room if you have to get income. I didn't know this. And I wound up buying this land. And then my husband at the time started a business that didn't work, that took on debt and liabilities. I'm sharing so much. This is a safe space, right? This is important.
Absolutely a safe
This
space.
is a safe space.
Absolutely a safe.
So I, and then we had our first child, and all sorts of expenses came, and this payment of the land that was purchased, what came with it were a lot of taxes on the land that I didn't anticipate. Again, ignorance can be painful. And suddenly we had more debt than we ever thought we would have. And someone told me if I could sign this form, I could just fill out this form and I wouldn't have that debt. I
Mm,
was so ignorant, despite my quote unquote education, that I said, "Okay, really? I don't have to pay it?" And it was crimping us at the time. And he's like, "Val, why did we do this?" He didn't like it. And so I signed it. I didn't realize that what I was doing was filing for bankruptcy. Like,
right.
that's ignorance. I filed for bankruptcy when I was 30.
Wow.
And and I'm sharing this confidentially. That's what ignorance looks like. And
Right.
the shame that can come from that afterwards. So when we went to try to get I think my first child I was 30. Yeah. So when we go to get a mortgage, I'm like, "No, we're good." "No, you signed." I didn't realize it. That's just ignorance, because someone said, "Yeah, you just fill this out." And I'm like, "And I don't have to pay anymore?" I should have asked questions. We want to
Right.
create a space so that you don't have that
To make
experience.
the same mistakes. Absolutely.
Right. Fast forward. And then the point is, I'm sharing that because you can imagine how embarrassing that was and how much shame I felt around
Mhm.
my ignorance, or how much shame my husband felt around the business that's not working, and going back to friends and family and saying the money you gave us was lost it was a dark time, right?
Right.
But it doesn't have to stay dark. That's why we got to
Right.
bright up, because for
That's the
any time,
point.
the experiences that we have around money are not bright, and generationally we carry that on. And so, fast forward, I now have several homes, and they generate income. And where you were isn't where you have to be. It's a chapter
Absolutely.
in your story. It doesn't have to be your entire story.
And it starts with you choosing to do better and to know and to find out really because you can't. I think oftentimes we expect so much of ourselves as women and we don't realize that you can only do what you know to do. So
Right.
even when you're following your intuition is based on the set of experiences that it has access to, right? So you literally have to give yourself new experiences so
You
that
do.
it can pull from something more, something better for yourself. So I want to encourage anybody that's here right now, if we're having this conversation and some of these things are foreign to you, if you're sitting there and you're saying, I'm not sure what to do about retirement, or I'm not sure what to do about my high interest rates, or I didn't even realize that I could get a lower interest rate on my credit card. Or if you're saying to yourself right now, like, she just said basis points, and I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah,
That
I'm glad you called
means,
that out.
right,
Yeah. It's a language, right?
right. And that's what the Bright Up app is here to help you do. It's here to help you understand, to get into a safe space where you will be able to ask the questions you need to ask, get the information you need to get, and it not feel like I have to put all of myself out here in order to do that. And again, this company is Black female owned, Black female run. So we really do understand what your struggles are because we've been there. Val has just bared to you her soul. So she's letting you know she's been there and she understands some of the things that we're going through around shame and guilt and not having enough and not knowing enough. And, the bottom line is it's okay.
It is so okay. And what you just said, Muffy, I just want to double click on shame, doubt, um, not knowing. They're all liabilities.
Right.
And when we want to build our wealth, it is our assets minus our liabilities. So if our
Mm,
liabilities are great, that means our wealth is less. If our belief in ourself is low, that's a liability. And so
right.
our worth is low. So this notion and this Venn diagram of our wealth and our worth is where our true freedom comes. So imagine a bird, fly like an eagle.
Right.
Imagine a bird with these wings, and one is our wealth wing, and the other is our worth wing, or our well-being wing. Our bird, the more we know our worth, we're going to make choices that are in our best interest, unapologetically.
Right.
We're going to make the choices that
Unapologetically.
unapologetically, we're going to make the choices that we'd want our daughters and our sons to make, that we might not make for ourselves. We're going to say no to those things that don't value us. Like,
Right.
no, I can refinance that credit card. I can refinance that auto loan. No, I'm not going to spend what I would spend on some items because I would rather invest it for me. And so we want
Absolutely.
to teach you about the power of compounding interest, and so that you can also compound that compassion, right?
Right.
So you can invest over time. Free money does exist if you
It
invest,
does.
but it does. But you don't know if you haven't been taught the why. And so we
Right.
want to spend the time to make sure you learn the why.
That was one of my lessons of my 30s, just in terms of, and it's compound interest is probably one of my greatest lessons of my 30s is just recognizing that whether you're talking about your life, your money, your relationships, compound interest is real.
It
You
is.
we always say do the work. Everybody wants to do the work. A large part of doing the work is figuring out how to make it easier for yourself. Like, honestly, it's figuring out what can I put stock into, whether that stock is your time, your money, your faith, that is actually over time, I'm going to have to work less money in
Yes.
or work
Work
less in
less.
order for it to have more dividends.
Yes.
So if you are a sister and you are in a different income bracket than you were last year, whether that's less or more, you need to be on the Bright Up app. You need to be thinking about refinancing your debt. You need to be thinking about how you get yourself out of whatever money kerfluffle you've gotten yourself into. You need to be thinking about how do I get to the next level of information? Because
Yes.
all of those things will have compound interest over time. Those are things that if you do them today, 5 years from now, you'll be able to look back at your life and say, I don't even have to do those things anymore.
This is true. This is a simple three-factor formula that gives you results. It is what you put in, that's the amount of money that you might invest, whatever you put in, then the interest rate that you earn, and time.
Right. And
These three
time.
factors will drive what you get on the end. And we should probably show this to some folks just so that they understand it. It is so powerful. I can give you some factors. Is this an engaged community? Like,
It is like they're talking on the
give,
sidelines.
give us a. I don't get a chance to see them
Oh, you
myself.
can't see it?
Oh, there they are. I see them now.
Mhm.
Thank you, Facebook user. This conversation is
Yes.
stepping out of fear. Who said that?
Right.
Yes, the first step
We'll
is
highlight
stepping
that
out of
one.
fear. So my thing is fearless. It's not fearless, it's fearless. We have to fear
Ah,
less
love
and
it.
ask
I
the
love a good
question.
one.
I love it. I didn't see these things.
Yes, there's a bunch of comments
Oh,
coming up.
oh, I'm loving these comments. Yes, ladies, love you. And what is the name of the app? It's getbrightup.com.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell you this. This is important. We're this you are the first community we're coming from. And I tell you, I'm channeling my grandmother Rose. She was amazing. She wound up becoming an entrepreneur and taking care of all the kids in the neighborhood and baking these rolls. Anyway, I'm channeling it. It starts with loving yourself and being
Right.
knowing that you're going to be imperfect, right? So this app is going to have all sorts of challenges. I'm just telling you that. We're going to put it out there, and sometimes we don't put things out there because we're afraid that we aren't perfect, or it's not right, or we aren't good
Right.
enough. In fact, you are good enough, and it's all right if you mess up. You like that's what happens because in the losses are the learnings. And
Right.
the losses are the learning. So let's learn. And I want to learn where things aren't working. Like, where did this not make sense? It's imperfect, guys. And you are we are starting off. You're the first community that we're going
Val,
to with our app.
can I tell you that you are in the exact right place? Because my community, we have built this community together, mostly because they already know. Muffy will put something out and be like, y'all like this? Oh, we gonna do it. Y'all don't like it? Oh, we not doing
We're
that.
not exactly.
We
That's
ain't
what we
gonna do
want to
that.
that's
So
what we
there
want
you
to
go.
hear. Like, this is crazy. Or, you know what? I would rather have this. And if we hear from you that I would rather have this, thank you. I'm glad you say you love me back. This is so important to me. And it's emotional for me because we Black women, we are doing so much. We
Right.
do so much. And often we feel so alone, and we aren't. We're with the higher power.
Right.
We've
Always.
got each other. Um,
Always.
and I feel like I left Wellington. Ladies, I mean, I feel like I've been so blessed. At my peak, I was managing $20 billion. And then my brother's like unbanked. Like, what the hell? Like, no, let's get you banked. And then he wasn't charged right. No, what the hell? You were worth it, Jamie. You were worth it, Vicky. You were worth it, Brown Mamas. You don't have to be overcharged. And there is a way. There is a way that together, when we know what you want, I'm telling you, I'm going to the grave with this one. We want
Mm,
to build your wealth. We also want to reinforce your worth
right.
because you aren't what happened to you. You aren't your struggles. It's not your fault. And you need to have the hand against your back that says, this is how we can go.
Right. And I definitely want to, we're almost at the end of our time, but I just want to reinstate for you ladies that are watching, you get to choose. It's your choice. So you can leave this conversation today and you can go back to being tired. You can go back to being exhausted. Because let me tell you, it ain't never going to be a limit to the amount of things that society asks Black women to do. Today they want us, tomorrow they want us to mop our floors, to the next day they want us in the boardroom. There's always going to be something to do. But the question is, are you going to choose to prioritize yourself, your needs, getting yourself out? I was on a flight 2 days ago, and everybody knows when you get on a flight and they start giving those announcements, what's the first thing they tell you?
Oxygen masks, put them
Put your
on.
oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
Don't try to help nobody else because you're going to die. You is surely going to die trying to help somebody else.
7 seconds. Without it, you're gone.
You're
And how
gone.
many times are we helping everybody, but we aren't doing it for ourselves? So
Right.
that savings, and it starts with how you save and how you spend. So you have to
Always.
become aware of how you're spending and see the opportunity. Wait, I don't really need that. I'm just impulse buying because it says it's a sale. You're saving instead of, like, I saved 50%. No, you just spent money that you didn't need to spend.
Right.
Right.
Right. And it's
And then
hard.
it is hard.
I want to make sure y'all know that we know it is hard because we've had some, most of us Black women have had some situations in our lives where we've had to make we feel like we've had to make bad financial decisions in order to be successful. And so we've done that repeatedly oftentimes. And so those behaviors are ingrained in us. But the reality is, just because a behavior is hard to get rid of doesn't mean it can't be gotten rid of.
Right. And self-care, it's this person says self-care
Step
is
one.
self-love. And it's like savings. You know what? It's really like savings. When you have a cushion, when something happens that you don't expect, like what are those self-care items? And this is what the call out, what is the call to action for you guys? One is spending that mirror time and loving who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and repeating for you privately that you're worth it. And how am I going to value me today? Visualize that future self and say, what can I do today financially and personally that our future self will say thank you for. And in our app, we asked you that because tests
Mm.
have shown that when you visualize your future self, you'll do more of the right things. You'll make more of those better choices today. How can we disrupt that debt for you? How can we understand? Let's have a meeting with someone who can look at my finances. Let
Absolutely.
me invest in a course. So we're going to find out, and I love the feedback that we're going to get. Self-care is like savings, it's self-love. And so we're going to compound not only interest, we're going to compound unconditional self-love because we're worth.
Somebody just asked where to find the app. So you want to put in, when you're in the Apple store or the Android store, you want to put in Get Bright Up and it will come up. I'm getting ready to show it to y'all.
Now, and if it's not coming up, that's one of those glitches that we're talking about that we're going to hear from you, right? We
And what
need
I'm
to.
going to be doing over the next few weeks, number one, Val's going to be hanging out with us. So that's number one. And then number two, um, all the things start with you. Absolutely, sis. And then number two, I'm going to be doing an app walkthrough on my cell phone and I'll be posting it in the group. So you'll be able to see how to get into the app. Um, Lashisha, I'm going to put the link in the
You
comments.
know what? This is an example of what I talked about, where imperfections are going to happen. So I just got a message from the tech team that there's a tech issue, which is crazy to have a tech issue in the middle of this. So if it's not now,
Some people have gotten it though.
oh, they
Some
have.
people have
Oh,
gotten it and some
good.
people haven't. So just make sure that you keep trying throughout the day. You're going to hear from us. Like this will not be the last time. Bright Up's going to be hanging out. Val is going to be hanging out with us for the
Okay.
next 3 months. So you're going to hear about the Bright Up app. She's going to be coming in and giving us some advice on taking care of our financial selves, as well as taking care of our emotional, mental, social health selves. So please don't think that this is going to be the last you hear of us. Natasha says she has it on her
Oh,
Android.
good.
She's using it. So, and then they're posting the link in the comments for you to get to
Oh, good.
it directly. So we're good. So make sure you check the comments so you can get in the app. And again, this is a sister to sister type thing. We are helping this company as a Black female owned company. This is sister to sister to build this app because we believe in what they are doing. The link is in the comments, y'all. So just know, you got to scroll, or you might have to wait till we get off the video and then scroll. Yep.
And how, and
Everybody's asking for the link. Okay, we'll get you the link directly.
we'll
Don't
get
worry
you the
about
link. The other thing that I would love is to just hear from you. We're like, what do
it.
you guys want? Like, let's just take a quick poll. What do you want most? Do you want to reduce the cost of your debt? Do you want to have more learnings? Would you like to invest more? Do you want to own a home?
So we're going to take a Bright Up
We're,
poll
we're going to do
and
a poll.
in our group, and it will be able to see what people want to learn. Because what we're going to do is get with Val. Once you guys tell us what you want to learn about, we're going to get with Val and we're going to schedule some sessions in the group so she can come and talk to you about the things you want to hear about. So we're going to post that poll in the group ASAP. Make sure you take it. And of course, I'm going to tag all of y'all who commented on here in there.
I love that. And you know, when you talked about, I don't know, did you celebrate Harriet Tubman?
No, I didn't. I did
Okay,
not.
so Girl Trek does this thing with Harriet Tubman. They had a Harriet Tubman Day. Smart investment opportunities, yes, that would be helpful. Like just understanding how do you get started. We can talk to you with you about that. But feel you know Harriet Tubman. I don't know if you know the story, but Harriet, when she talked to her brothers about leaving, and she had a plan, and they were all ready to go, and the brothers didn't want to do it, and they left, and then she came back because the brothers didn't want to do it. And you know
Mhm.
what it's like, brown mamas, the many times we have things in our own mind that we want to do and other people say, like you said, doubt, no, don't. And she's like, I hear you, but I'm trusting me. So trust your love and know your light and just do what you know is best for you, or ask the question if you don't know. And
Right.
then she went out on her own. She put her oxygen mask on, then she came back and she got her families. So let's be Harriet like, right? Invest more to make your money grow. Yes. If anyone has a 401k, ask wherever you're working, a 401(b) or 401k. Companies will match what you put up. That's
Val,
your money.
Val, I'm cutting you off
Debt
because
reduction
we're
plan.
coming back.
Debt
We are coming
reduction
back.
plan.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
what somebody else said they want to know about debt reduction plans. So I don't want you to give it all away in one video because this
I'm
woman
not.
is super knowledgeable. She knows a lot. She is one of the best people. So last time me and Val were on, we we took over our meeting with other people and we kind of had a black girl seance. That's what I like to call when we start talking about everything spiritual and mental health and financial health and just so Val has a lot of love to give y'all. So meet us back here in a week or so, and we're going to have another conversation. And we're going to talk about some of these things you put in the comments. Feel free to put whatever you want in the comments because Val and Verona are now a part of the group and they'll be able to go into the group and see what you put in the comments. So if you have a question you want to ask her, feel
Yeah.
free to put it in the comments. And then you're also, again, we're going to be having tons of conversations with Bright Up. We're going to be doing a debt challenge. That's going to be starting, I think my own set is going to be starting April 4th. I think. I can't remember the date. Don't quote me on that. Just know it's coming up in a week or so. Or I think 2 weeks is when the debt challenge begins. So we hear y'all loud and clear because y'all have told us several times through several surveys that y'all want to talk about money. And we get it. That's why we brought Val and her team. And I'm really excited about this Bright Up partnership because I think it's going to help our ladies to make some major moves. Val, you excited?
I'm so excited. And I'm excited. I feel so blessed and so highly favored. And this is such, I do with my kids. We did this thing where every day we'd ask, like, what are your highs and what are your lows? So they could see that people have lows and they manage them. This is clearly my high.
Yes.
Spending time with you, connecting with the brown mamas is clearly my high.
I love it. Thank you so much, Val. We are so grateful to have you.
I'm grateful, and we're grateful to have you. Thank you for your leadership for creating this community.
Yeah.
And community is powerful. So
It
as we
is.
go on this journey, think about who you want to bring along on this journey. And like Harriet, if someone doesn't want to go, you keep going, and then you come back and you get them.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Val. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
mamas. Y'all
Thank
have
you,
been so
mamas.
attentive through this conversation. I just really appreciate
I
y'all.
I do too. Oh,
Right.
you lived at 59th and Lansdowne. I went to First Corinthian Baptist Church. You'll appreciate that. Not too far from there. My grandmother played the piano. This is such a beautiful community. For the longest, I didn't see the comments.
Yeah. So she's
So
just now seeing them, y'all.
thank you guys.
All right. All right, sisters.
Disrupt debt and doubt because
Disrupt
you're
debt
worth it.
and doubt. So
We are worth it.
that's right. All
All
right,
right.
ladies. Have
Take
a
care.
great afternoon. We
Have a
will
good
talk to
one.
y'all soon. Stay tuned
Bye.
and comment on this video.
Thank you.
Peace.